Aloha from Kilipohe, Keikani Aloha. Yeah, I'm back on the gearbox / transmission for the LS MT125, and it's a little bit of a rainy day here, so in between the showers I'm going to try to get some time in on the inspection and dismantling of the individual components. I got my notebook. If we need to replace anything, should be able to make note of it. I don't think I have enough paper towels, but oh well. So this is the brake. So this is the brake. It's the steel portion of it. Yeah, that looks fine. The other steel side of it, just a little bit of wear. You know, I mean, how many times did they even use this to stop the tractor before it fried? I don't know. Friction plates. I think there's two here. No, there's just one. One friction plate. Nice and thick. Doesn't seem to be scored or anything. And our steel. Yeah, this one shows a little bit. It's not wear. I mean, you can still see a lot of the machining marks or lapping marks, I suppose. So that's fine. Corners all nice and sharp. Of course, I'm finding, you know, metal fragments, glitters everywhere, all over these plates, so I'm not really sure how I'm going to clean them. Big snap ring, also fine. Their balls, these balls, not these nuts, but these balls. Lever. Probably want to replace that O-ring. Okay, so that's the brake. This is a fun one. This is a hydraulic pump. I don't know. I could regret this, but there's only one way to find out. Well, here comes the rain. I don't know, I think it looks fine. Lightly put it back together. I do want to clean it, get any metal flakes out of it, but that'll be, I might do all of that off camera. Final drive. You know, do I really want to put this back? I think the answer is no. Okay, let's take a closer look at this gear. A little bit of wear on the spline, but I really think this is just machine marks from the mating spline transferring to it. I really did think this goes in here. Oh, it does. Yeah, okay. It was just too hard to go in from the back side. So the pinion comes in from here. The big ring gear on the differential is down here. Now this does not look damaged. I wonder if it's shaped like this. And you know, these are not labeled at all. None of these shims have any markings on them to differentiate thickness or something like that. So is that just sort of a generic thing to protect the bearing from smashing into the aluminum housing, or is it actually meant to? I guess it really can't provide adjustment. That's kind of what these guys are for. I don't have anything particularly. These are pretty worn, I mean, as far as they go. But yeah, these guys go in between here like that. I assume that, you know, that somehow sets some preload on this bearing or what. I don't know. They all look usable again. I don't think there's any reason to change those things out. They're not destroyed. You know, I have bought bearings from other sources before, especially with the Massey Ferguson, because that's very difficult to get parts for. There is a dealer, but individual orders take forever, and shipping is extravagant to Hawaii. So, you know, I just went on Amazon and bought some US-made bearings for the Massey Ferguson and put it back together. There was so much rust everywhere in that thing. I mean, how bad could it be if I had some generic bearing instead of the name brand one from Massey Ferguson? And, you know, it's still fine so far, knock on wood. Okay, what is this? It doesn't say. I think this is the differential lock lever. Yeah, it's just, maybe it just needs to be dismantled and cleaned, because every time I do that I see glitters, and there are definitely some scratches developing in the shaft as I do that. So I'm not cleaning now, I am simply inspecting. Here's the differential assembly. This bearing actually feels quite good. 6210. Let's see, this one on the other side is the same thing. I don't know. You know, I said I didn't want to really take this apart, but the fact is I have to take it apart to clean it, because it's just full of metal. I can't have that stuff floating around. So this is the final drive side. Final drive bevel gear would sit up here, and that shaft engages with this ring, and this is the differential lock. So I believe what happens is slide that, activate that lever, and this slides in, and that locks the differential together. Yeah, so it's rolling now. And once you get it in place, yeah, that goes in there, and then that's locked. Just looking at the spider gears and the hub gears, they all look okay. You know, they're not particularly well finished. It almost looks like they're sintered parts or something like that. So, you know, it's not like they're worn. It's just that they don't have a really closely machined look to them. Okay, next up is the PTO shaft. PTO shaft, PTO idler, PTO select lever. You know, I saw this discoloration before, and I think it's just they hardened this area where this pin goes. So this shaft sits in between a couple parts of the housings and just, you know, slides back and forth. The detent's pretty strong. It takes quite a little bit to move the shaft, but I don't think any of that's worn. This is the PTO shaft. So this, I believe this gets driven. This shift gets driven. Go one click. You've got them both. This drives the rear PTO. Go two clicks. You've got just the front, which is this one. Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, maybe, yeah, we'll just put the bearing down. PTO select lever. This needs a cleanup. You know, this still has mill scale on it. You know, they really just welded that on there and then put it in the transmission. This is the hydraulic pump input input gear. Hydraulic pump input gear. And this rides on one of these silly little bearings. But this one is, yeah, this one is significantly worse than the other one. I believe that is off of the end of the shaft. It doesn't even turn. And this idler gear. Oh, that's chewed up right there. I think I know why though. The PTO clutch has this flapper thing that kind of uses this shaft as a stop for the clutch, and I think that rides on this shaft, just kind of bounces up and on. So that would definitely do some damage on it. I think they use this flat, but this, you know, this keys into the front, the hydrostatic case. This goes into the back. Okay. Well, that makes it a little bit more convenient. This gear is centered on these two bearings using that snap ring in the center of it. Grinds. Just grinds. I don't know if you can hear it. This is the HST motor shaft. So this comes out of the high-speed hydrostatic transmission and drives the bevel gear. It said, yeah, motor shaft. No. Yes, motor. And there's not much to it. Two bearings, a shim, and two gears. And these gears are the range select. So they ride on this shaft, and I can't remember which way they go on. Yeah, they go on like this, or they go on like this. I suspect, yeah, no, they go on like this, because when I drew the hydrostatic pump off of the gearbox, this pulled out like that and dropped that gear into the bottom case, and that it took me forever to find. Yeah, let's take a look at this shaft. Yeah, so is this thing just spinning? No, it's actually rolling. It's interesting that it's missing. It's either missing or only has one seal. It's very interesting. I don't know if you can see in the video, but the machining for this spline has run onto this bearing journal. And then this shim, which is kind of beat up, I believe it goes on the front of that bearing. And, you know, I call these shims, but really I think they're just, they're wear surfaces for the aluminum casting. So to get back to it, the splines look fine. There's no indication of real damage on the shaft anywhere. Certainly nothing you can feel. These are actually kind of worn. I mean, this thing, I don't think they're missing a lot of their material. They're missing some of it. I mean, they're not synchro meshed. So they're going to grind when, well, you can. There's probably nothing to keep you from shifting with the pedal engaged. I don't see anything on the splines. Okay. Not going to get any more of those. PTO shaft. This bearing goes on the end of this shaft. Yeah, if there's room, that right there, that's where I want to put that low oil alarm. Right there. There's nothing else in this cavity as far as I remember. like I said, this PTO has never had anything on it. Yeah, the gear's fine. This is a massive gear. This one, these 3 bearings, I mean, they're only going to turn when you have the PTO engaged. And since I don't have any PTO implements, I might someday build a flail mower. I'd like to have a flail mower, but only to work with. You know, I'd do jobs. I have no use for it really here on my property. Okay, 4-wheel drive shaft. Now they cleaned the mill scale off of this 4-wheel drive detent. Well, it's a 4-wheel drive select lever. So this is the 4-wheel drive output shaft. And I say 4-wheel drive, really it's the front drive axle. And you know, for as low in the transmission as this is, it really, I mean, the bearings don't feel like they have a lot of crap wrong with them. I take it back. This is not low down in the transmission. This is actually up pretty high. Taking a look at this gear. The meshing faces look fine. Yeah, so this is the same weird thing where, you know, this is the side that gets meshed. This side of the gear. So it's got, you know, rounded teeth for meshing. But then the front side, these are all beveled. I mean, this engages and disengages. So I can understand why these are modified. But these guys being beveled, that just takes area away from the gear. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. Not that kind of an engineer anyway. Analyze quote unquote shims. The infamous detent ball and spring. Oh, this has, no, it's got a washer on. So this goes into the hydrostatic pump side, hydrostatic transmission side. And so when you take these out, you separate this guy off of this shaft. Basically, you pull the hydrostatic transmission away from the gearbox, and when you do that, if you don't take this out, blink, this goes into the transmission. You would just like freak out because you heard a ball bearing drop out of someplace you have no idea where it went from. So mid PTO. Not much to it, but this is the one that's in the lower section of the gearbox. It's just locked up. Both these bearings are just like hosed. Come off there. Yeah. That guy. This is lovely. Listen to this. That's a ball bearing. Okay, so there's the front bearing and the shaft disassembled. This gear is fine. Now this is a really weird thing. I'm not sure that this is part. It must be part of the mid PTO because these gears, I mean, they do mesh and they're really close together. But this is another one of those things where this gear is mounted and it actually slides on these bearings. Maybe there's a circlip in it and I just didn't see it before. Yeah, okay, just like that other shaft. There's a circlip in this one. And this circlip appears to be in the center. I thought it was sliding back and forth like it was some kind of a select mechanism. Okay, so now we got the input shaft and the PTO clutch. Now, I did mess with this a little bit recently, and this snap ring here had actually been pushed up the shaft, and this bearing you know, was kind of free to slide forward and back on that. And I think what happened, because this comes directly through the hydrostatic transmission, and I think what happened when the hydrostatic pump, which is roughly here, K-toed, it was pushing debris and junk into this bearing. And that shoved this snap ring off and pushed the bearing back, and all that's where all of this stuff came from. This was in the, you know, basically in this vicinity of the hydrostatic pump. And I believe, I'm not really sure, but I believe this is a part of a cage for a roller, not roller, but ball thrust bearing in the hydrostatic transmission on the pump side of the hydrostatic transmission. Okay, just for fun, I was wondering how this clutch engaged. And this shaft goes into the back of the transmission, and PTO engage solenoid has a passage right in there. And I believe this through hole here, which you can't really see from this angle, I'll show you later, but this through hole here goes into the bottom of this clutch. So I thought I'd just put some air onto it and see if that's how the clutch engages. Yeah, sure enough. So that's the clutch engaged, and that's the clutch disengaged. So here we're driving PTOs, here we're not. Okay, well, interesting to me, I don't know, it's interesting to you. But that's really kind of an interesting way to do it. I mean, space savings wise, it's big because you don't need another lever on the side of the transmission, and you don't need a fork, you don't need a slide gear and all of that stuff. This seems a little big, but I guess it needs to be that way to handle the load of the PTO. But okay, I gotta get this bearing off. I got my cheap Amazon bearing puller. Here's the little hole I was telling you about. The thing that clued me in on that's where this went is there's this there's a hydraulic seal right there. I mean, it's kind of interesting because this shaft is spinning continuously. Anytime the engine is running, this shaft is spinning. And you can see that's rolling away. But I assume it's being held in position by this bearing. Yeah, and that's much smaller diameter than this. So it does not, I mean, it probably is supported by this bearing, but there's no risk of taking that seal off by removing this bearing. So yeah, all right, this spline gear just pulls out. The gear teeth are a little shiny, but it's not worn. There's still plenty of tops to all of the gears teeth. That's fine. This bearing actually rolls quite well, but I don't want to replace it. Like I said. Clutch just comes off like that. Doesn't feel like it's under spring. Oh yeah, there's a giant spring in the middle. I'll have to be very careful about that. There are 2 sets of roller bearings, needle bearings inside here. Clutch stack. This stuff is barely used. I think I'll just have to wipe these clean and put them back in because I don't think there's any real way to, because of the friction material, and really I don't want to replace it because I don't use the PTOs, as I said. The case looks fine. This is all fine. Just those needle bearings. I would really like to replace those needle bearings. Maybe I can try my interior bearing part. I'm not going to pull this spring off. I don't want to kill myself. I'll just, this is all metal in here. Once I get those needle bearings out, I'll just hose the whole thing down with brake cleaner. Okay, this gear. Also 2 needle bearings. Look at the gear. Bearing races look fine. The gear looks fine. Needle bearings. And the washer. So this is the hydraulic passage that provides pressure to overcome that spring. Yeah, so far this shaft looks just fine. The problem is down here and where this bearing sits. That's going to be where the problem lies. Yeah, so when I took this out of the shaft out of the transmission, that snap ring was pushed, I mean, even further than that. So pretty far. It's a little uneven. Anytime I have to use this pair of snap ring pliers to do anything, I pretty much end up replacing the snap ring that I take off with it. Okay, finally, this bearing and this shaft. There is a little bit of a shiny spot, but it's not right in the middle of the bearing journal. I think this is going to be okay. I did mention there is some wear, some marks of carnage on the spline where the pump rides. Yeah, I don't see right there. I mean, that it's not in a machined area, but it is. It's on the shaft. I think I can just clean that up with a file. And it's funny, this is a snap ring groove, but I'm pretty sure there's not a snap ring there. I didn't see one on the parts diagram when I was messing with it. And coming down here, I mean, this is probably right there is where the seal rides. There's that little bit of carnage on the shaft, but like I said, I can just take that with a file, take care of that with a file. Yeah, I mean, and then this bearing, oh, it does turn. I thought it wasn't going to turn at all. You could see how that seal is just smashed into that thing. So there was material just getting blown out of the hydrostatic transmission into this thing. There you go. Huh. Yeah, it rolls quite well now. I think it was just that that seal got smashed into there. Range select, and this is the last box of parts here. Range select. This is the, yeah, this is going to have some bad bearings in it, but we'll get to it. Okay. Easy stuff first. Range select. That got hot. And, some pretty significant scoring on there. And some burrs. That rides on this gear. Is that right? That's about right. These burrs, it could just be rough. And maybe that's heat treating from, like what they do on the shafts. Where's my hammer? Little mark there. Looks like a little impact spot. I'll have to take a real close look at that. Okay, this is not going to be in the replacement category. Gear. Taking a real close look at that. For any damage from shrapnel coming in and getting caught between this and that fork. A little bit of wear on that, on the face of that bearing. It's all a little rough. Lots of little burrs on this. think I'll make an action to deburr that. I'll just take a needle file and knock off those corners. This is a special bearing. Geez, you don't suppose? No, it couldn't possibly be intended to be like that. You know, I wonder if it's an alignment bearing, because that doesn't feel like wear. You know, could it be it just has an extra wide race to allow it to align the shaft? Okay, this is the shaft that goes into the pinion gear, and then the bevel gear, you know, right in there like that. There's crap in there. And then, so this sits in this this journal in the case that it doesn't go all the way around. And the surface of the journal in the case is kind of beat up. And I thought that was from this spinning in there, but I don't think that's what happened. I mean, this only moves when the wheels are moving. Otherwise, it pretty much just sits and does nothing. There we go. Now this is special because it's got this ring, and that's what rides in that in that aluminum journal, and it keeps it from sliding back. And this shaft is fine. But look, I mean, it really doesn't even, the splines cut into where the bearing journal is, so the bearing is actually not even riding fully on metal. Almost. No real signs of wear on the bevel gear. Pinion gear, pinion. And this is called the idler. Check out this gear. Lots of parts in that one. Very complex little set of gears. I believe the only things we have left are the actual wheel hubs. And I did verify on the parts website last night that they are the same. So conceivably I should just be able to do one. And when I say they're the same, I mean this hub and shaft, they're the same part number. For both the left side and the right side. But, you know, looking through the forums, this seal is something that goes out. But it's not surprising. I mean, the finish on this is not so great. And they just painted over everything. I mean, it was hard to get this bearing out because it had paint on the inside of the hub. But I'll tell you, at least on the front hub of my Massey Ferguson, when I replaced, all the bearings in the front axle, some of these seal journals were so rough. It was just amazing. And in this case, it's not so bad. I bet I can just take a prep disc and clean that up. The parts manual, the website with the parts list on it, is pretty good. It actually, for all the bearings, it gives you their partner, but it also tells you which bearing it is, as far as 6203, 6007, or whatever. It tells you right in the description which one it is. So you could easily get the generics from the description on the parts manual website. Small mark there on the shaft. It's just kind of funny how dirty these splines are. I mean, they're in this oil bath into the differential. I would just assume that they would be cleaner. Oh, there is a number there. Yeah, I drilled right through that third number. 40, 62, 11. So no doubt this is 40, this is 62, and this is 11. Okay, backtracking here a little bit. I didn't have the bearing puller out to do this yet. And I got this bearing puller on Amazon for 60 bucks or something like that. I'm pretty happy with it. That's the fourth time I've used it, I think, and it works great. It's again, forever unused PTO bearing or PTO shafts. I mean, really, how likely is it that crap got in these needle bearings? Come on. That's pretty much it. There's a couple of boxes with nuts and bolts here and there, but I'm not going to go over those. I mean, they are what they are. Okay, well, that's the inspection complete on all of the gearbox parts. Next step is to clean everything. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Aloha.